Hello, friends. Good to be back. It's been a crazy week again, right? With the release of the video of the poor Ukrainian girl being slain in cold blood, on a bus, and then of course the assassination of Charlie Kirk, who I didn't really follow too much. I mean, even when he would show up on the radio, I would listen for a couple minutes and then I'd move along. He's not my thing, but he didn't deserve that. I don't think he was. I don't think he was wrong about a whole lot, but he's my kid's age, so they have a different way of operating in the world, and in social media and what have you. But but here's the thing, and it's actually related to the death of Charlie Kirk. Because just an hour or two before that happened, I was sitting here in my office editing a book. And when I get to the end of a chapter or a section, I'm getting my brain's starting to fry. I'll go on social media for a couple minutes to see what's going on in the world. And I was checking Substack in the notes feature on Substack. And something floated by, not from somebody I subscribe to or follow, James K.A. Smith, who is a professor at Calvin University here in Michigan, in Grand Rapids. It used to be Calvin College. I thought it was still called that, but he's at Calvin University. And he was sharing a book that everybody should read. And the book is Why Christians Should Be Leftists by Paul Christman. It's spelled Christman, ironically. And I commented it, and it's like, oh God, here's another academic. And I said, this is typical post for an academic. That's all I said. And then, of course, David Bentley Hart, of all people, had to chime in and defend his friend. Apparently he's friends with Christman or Christman, or not, Smith. And then I went back later, and David doesn't post on social media, but he answered everybody who critiqued, and I didn't see anybody who almost everybody did critique that posting, and he tried to let everybody have it, which is weird. But it's not weird too, because David, as a lot of people know, is he identifies as a social democrat. I think that's what he calls it, or yeah, I think that's what he calls himself. And I just want to. Now, the funny thing is, a lot of people assume I am too, because I don't know why, but I assume it's because of sociology, which is a lot of people will interpret as a feminist theology. And in fact, John Milbank, when he wrote the endorsement for my books, The Submerged Reality, he said basically feminist theology doesn't go far enough, and Michael Martin goes far enough. I'm paraphrasing, and I'm guessing that's why people assume that I'm a lefty or I'm Marxist adjacent or something, and I'm not. Now, on the other hand, I'm not a Republican by a long shot. I'm certainly. I can't escape being understanding myself as conservative, probably in the way that Roger Scruton was conservative, but I'm not just like him either, right? He's more of a traditionalist conservative, I guess you would say, and I'm more of I don't know what you call it, postmodern conservative. I don't know how to call it, almost in a way. Rod Dreher is not my favorite author, but I think he was onto something almost 20 years ago when he wrote the book on crunchy conservatism, because it's basically what I am. Basically a hippie. As I was mentioning the other day in an interview that my son, who's now 24, Aiden, when he was about 17, he watched the movie The Wicker Man. Have you ever seen that? Kind of what do they call it? Folk pagan horror. Just from 1970 or so. It's it's campy. But it's a good movie. And I said, what'd you think? And he said, it's basically our house, but with no human sacrifice, which is true. But we can always make an exception. But so I just want not to really draw this out really long today, but this idea of this, and the thing is, Smith posted this thing just 2 hours before Charlie Smith was killed, and clearly by a leftist. And we've been seeing a lot of that recently, a lot of violence coming from the left, and it's unmistakable. And the weird thing is, that the left always accuses the right of violence, but you don't see a lot of violence. I mean, sure, it's out there, but you don't see a lot of violence from the right. In fact, actually a good friend of mine, he's a lefty, but he's a really good friend of mine, posted something on social media a couple weeks ago, after that the trans kids shot up the school, and the kid had pictures of all his guns and stuff, all the weird stuff he was doing. And I can't remember how we got there, but he was basically saying that these people do, these gun nuts. And I'm like, wait. I have more guns than that guy. But I've never posted some screed, online threatening violence or anything. Of everybody I know, actually, out here in the country. Well, in fact, I probably have less guns than most guys. But we have, I don't know. I really specialize in double barrel shotguns, old ones. So I have like 3 of them from probably the 50s and earlier, maybe 60s. But one of them, I have a 12 gauge. It's probably from the 1920s or 30s. And I love that gun. My dad got it for me. Yeah. So here we are. I mean, I get this from a lot of people. They want me to be leftist adjacent, and I think when the Submerged Reality came out, I had all these people who were kind of Christian socialists coming at me. I'm like, yeah, we're part of the team. I'm like, no, I'm not part of that team. Now, if I had my preferences, if people wanted to do things according to my rules, we would be much more, society would be set up much more like the Jeffersonian ideal of the yeoman farmer as the ideal citizen of the country. I like that idea better than what we ended up with corporate interests getting too much involved. So I'd be much more like a distributist, right? Like Chesterton or Belloc, or my friend, late deceased friend Stratford Caldecott was really pushing for before he died. That's more what I would prefer, but we can't have that. We don't have that. And the best we can hope for at this moment, until that kind of distributism gets popular, which I don't think will ever happen, is to have a government that leaves people alone as much as possible. And you certainly didn't have that under left-leaning governments here in Michigan for sure. And certainly under the Biden administration, there was a big threat. I mean, we're a small farm. We have 10 acres, only about, I don't know, maybe an acre, acre and a half is under cultivation. Another acre or 2 is pasture, and the rest is woods and swamp. And so we're getting a survey from the Biden administration. As soon as they came in office, we got a survey. How many animals do you have? This is a voluntary survey. How many animals do you have? What do you do? And we ignored it since it was voluntary. The next year we got it. It was no longer voluntary. It was mandatory. And we don't have a lot of animals. I mean, right now we have just 1 colony of bees and 5 sheep. I don't know, 25, 30 chickens. And that's all we have right now. We had more chickens, but they're in the freezer. And sometimes we have goats. Sometimes we have cows. Sometimes we have pigs. Sometimes, what else do we have? Ducks or geese. I like raising ducks and geese, but they're messy. So that's my ideal, is that kind of distributist where property ownership is widely distributed, and there are more small businesses. I think that's a good way to do things, and it also is conducive to creating a kind of, we can call it a village economy, and we have a little bit of that out here. So we have a CSA with our farm, where we, people buy a share in the vegetables for the season. we've also participated in herd shares or milk shares or cow shares, where even though it's against the law to buy milk directly, buy raw milk, you can get around that by taking ownership in a cow, right? So you pay a share for the cow, and you're entitled to a share of the milk. So it's kind of a loophole. But the state of Michigan likes to crack down on stuff like that. They also like to crack down on small businesses, like a couple of our Amish butchers have been under a lot of pressure from the busybodies in the state of Michigan. And there was actually not far from here, we're not part of it, but a co-op where people were bringing their organic produce and raw milk and raw cheese and other kinds of meats. And the state cracked down on them and made them throw thousands of dollars worth of stuff out into a dumpster. Just because. It's shameful. But anyway, yeah, so the point I'm trying to make is that kind of political power out there is not conducive to distributism. And it's certainly coming from the left more than the right these days. Maybe it was different in the past, but right now it's coming from the left rather than the right. And interestingly, going back to James K.A. Smith, and I think I met him. Calvin's not far from here. I think I met him at a conference maybe in 2010. I don't know. Or maybe I even read something. I'm sure I've read something by him, but I kind of soured on him after he took over the helm of Image magazine, which used to be a really great magazine. I haven't read it since he took over. But I think they were really shitty toward Gregory Wolfe, who founded the magazine. Afterwards, he was supposed to be on the board, and they ran him out of town. And I think they were false charges of something or other. But he's a good guy, and he really that was Image magazine back in the day was a force of nature. It was really an important force or presence of Christianity in the arts, which usually sucks, if you probably know. So I think I met him, but I was going back. So what happened is, in one of the comments, I can't remember if it was David or somebody else, in defense of Christian socialism, about how in like the industrial Midwest and like Ohio Valley or Maryland, where there was industrial part where there was prosperity, like Detroit, and then the prosperity went away, and you're left with these shells of civilizations. Well, part of that, not the entire thing. There are evils, and I really think corporations are evil in general, as we saw through COVID. Right? Talk about ultimate evil: corporations, the government, and the media colluding to destroy people, right? Destroy people's livelihoods. That's not what we did. We want everybody safe. Yeah, right. You want to be everybody safe. But the comment was about, how that's what capitalism does, basically. It's actually not what capitalism does. And I'm not super capitalist, but yeah, I do like to make money and make a living. I have my own business, But what it is, and I can't believe people don't even think about this. Well, who destroyed the unions? Who destroyed those good-paying union jobs at auto factories? Well, in this country, it was Bill Clinton and little Bobby Reich. Was he the director? I can't remember. He was the director or secretary of not housing, of finance, or I can't remember what it was. He was somebody, but he was the architect of NAFTA, they call him. And so my father-in-law was a big union guy, right? Big union guy. And part of that, Crispin, his title is how unions are important and all that. Maybe was what Smith was saying about you. Like a union, think a lefty. Well, that may have been true in the 1930s and 40s and even to the 60s. But once it got to the 90s, it was not true anymore because Those are the same guys. Remember Bill Clinton talking about we're moving toward a services economy. Okay, thank you, Google. You can go to hell. But with the architect of NAFTA, Bobby Reich, they sent all the jobs out of the country. Right, which is why I think President Trump, one of his big things, I don't know if it's going to work, was not just with the tariffs, but to bring those jobs back, which is really, if you think about it, it's a smart idea. We'll see what happens. But it was Bill Clinton, lefty, who sent them away. I mean, maybe they didn't all go away that day that they signed the NAFTA treaty, but over time, that's what happened. That's why people said wages have stagnated for the last generation. Well, that's why. That's why. And so I don't get these so-called Christian socialists. It's a luxury term for academics, and I assume that these people don't know anybody with real jobs like farm or mechanics. I mean, most of my friends here out in the country, one of my friends is a logger. Another one is these mechanics who work in my car. I like those guys a lot. My friend, probably my best friend out here, works for Consumers Energy. He's probably he's probably the most white collar guy I'm friends with, but he's got a farm too. And who else? I'm trying to think. Another guy's a potter up the road. So, but these are people who have their own businesses mostly, and work hard. And these are also people like James K. A. Smith, I'm assuming, and maybe David, but certainly most of the Christian lefties I know hold in disdain, especially if they voted for Donald Trump, right? Oh, they're the worst human beings ever. And I knew this during the election. What was it? The 2016 election, right? I knew, and I refused to vote because at the time I was I hated Hillary Clinton, and I could not believe Donald Trump, the reality star and whatever he was running. So I didn't vote that time. But I knew it was really indicative of the cultural shift on the left, which had been the party of the party of unions and the working poor and the working class. When Hillary Clinton called them all a basket of deplorables, right? And my experience in academia, especially in Christian academia, is that those guys also think of them as a basket of deplorables. And I don't. Okay? And I do not. So I think they're out of touch with the reality. And Chrisman, actually, I looked him up. He teaches writing at the University of Michigan, which is not too far away from here, which is, I just called yesterday, the armpit of the universe. It's the worst place on earth. Well, not only as far as liberal politics goes, but last time I was there, and I try not to go there, but it's very close. There were still people wearing masks. It was such and the university itself was horrible during COVID to the students and to the faculty. Talk about power, right? They're not trying to keep people safe. They're trying to exert power. And I could go on a lot more about this, but I refuse. I can't. I got a lot of work to do. But I would love to hear what you have to say about this topic, because I just can't even.